Good morning. Welcome to Connection Church. Welcome to those who are visiting online. We're so glad you're here. This morning is a really special morning. I've been speaking with Terra over the last probably 7 months. We've been emailing back and forth and finally got a date. And today's the day. And so we're so thrilled to be able to have her come. Earlier we sang a song that said, "Break our heart, Lord, for what breaks yours." And I think this morning you may get a taste of that as we listen to Terra and what she has to bring. I'm going to introduce her. I'm going to read it because this is the first time that I met Terra this morning. And interestingly enough, we have connections. We didn't know that when we met each other this morning, but as we were talking, we had some cool connections already. Terra is a dedicated educator, advocate, and trainer who has been actively involved in anti-human trafficking efforts for over 20 years. She holds a dual BA degrees in international and multicultural studies and secondary social studies education from Evangel University. Her passion began in 2003 during an internship at the Salvation Army's national headquarters. In 2009, she became a missionary in Las Vegas, helping to build a grassroots nonprofit supporting trafficking victims, later serving as a state representative, program developer, and internship coordinator. In 2010, she founded Stop the Traffic, Make Some Noise, an annual awareness rally in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, now in its 15th year. Terra has helped coordinate Super Bowl, missing children, hospitality outreaches, participated in undercover operations, and worked with schools, law enforcement, and national organizations. She helped establish Damacus Road, a faith-based nonprofit in Oshkosh, where she now serves as Education and Engagement Director. Currently, she's organizing the Blitz, the Fox Valley's outreach for the NFL Draft. Terra is also a morning radio host on Q90 FM and lives in Menasha with her husband, Matt. They enjoy ballroom dancing, paddleboarding, and time with their nieces and nephews. We have the distinct privilege, I don't know if you know, we have the distinct privilege this morning of learning about something that we like to bury our head in the sand about, and that's human trafficking. And so with that, I want you to just welcome Terra Koslowski to our stage.
Things aren't always as they seem. Look beneath the surface. You might hear some things from the pulpit today you've probably never heard from a pulpit before, but I think it's worth the explanation. As we were singing that song, I thought of that same thing, and it said, "Open my eyes to things unseen." In the spiritual realm, I think, but also what's going on around us, hidden in plain sight, right in our very communities and in our state. Human trafficking is one of those things. Unfortunately, many people don't believe that it exists here because we don't see it like you can in other countries. Sadly, in other countries, you can walk down the street and see little children forced into brothels, forced into sexual slavery and human trafficking. But we don't see that here, so we think it doesn't happen. Each year, Wisconsin puts out a report called Hidden in Plain Sight. And that is, I think, a perfect example of what the report should be called about human trafficking, because it's going on all around us. And when you know what it really looks like, then you can understand how that could be. Many people have misconceptions about human trafficking. When I first started working in anti-trafficking in 2003, that was really the first year that the United States had started to have laws against human trafficking. I was going to Evangel to be a teacher and maybe work with an international nonprofit. and I did a Washington studies trip where we got paired with a senator or congressman, I asked to be placed with a nonprofit, having no idea what I was going to get into. I was paired with Lisa Thompson at the National Salvation Army headquarters, and it was there that my eyes would be open to things that were going on in our country and around the world that I had no idea about. And this was that years ago now. And then back then, after I saw, I had the choice. What do I do? I was overwhelmed. What do I do with all of this information that I'm seeing and hearing about? I can't even believe my eyes. But I also can't just walk away, even though the temptation was there to just go on pretending and making my life a lot easier, but knowing that others were every single night living in torment. So I knew I had to do something about it. I just didn't know what that looked like. And God directed my steps along the way. And it's hard to believe now, 23 years later, that through some of the things that He has brought me through and some of the things that He's shown. Many people don't think about human trafficking in the way that it actually exists. And so when I first started speaking, a lot of times I really had to spend a lot of time convincing people that this was an issue in our own country. Now, fast forward to present day, most people, I think, understand that this is an issue going on thanks to documentaries and movies and things, but there's still a lot of misunderstandings about the issue. A lot of people think that this is something that happens through kidnapping or something that happens overseas, or this is an inner city problem, or this is a runaway problem, or this happens to people, to kids who just have one parent or are drug addicted. And those things all happen. But we don't often think about what somebody who is a victim of human trafficking looks like. It's so easy to say, well, that happens over there somewhere, but not here. But it's because we don't really have an adequate representation of what human trafficking really looks like, and that it could just happen to any family. You can change the slide to the picture. You wouldn't think that it would look like this, because things aren't always as they seem. This is my friend Andrea, and I met her when I was a missionary in Las Vegas. She was a school nurse, and her husband worked for the FBI. So two-parent home, upper middle class family. They had just moved from Virginia to Las Vegas, and they had 4 children. 3 were much older, and then their daughter Hannah was several years younger. And so having moved, that is a big vulnerability for a child. Their daughter Hannah was 16 at the time. All their other children were adults. And she always felt like she had multiple parents because her siblings were always trying to parent her. So she wanted to have a lot of independence. And then the move concerned her parents because that's a very vulnerable time for any teenager. Now add in moving in a new area, Las Vegas, and they were concerned that she was not fitting in. She had some self-esteem issues as well, so they were concerned about that. But when she brought a boyfriend home and she seemed very happy, they were a little hesitant, but wanted to go along with it, wanted to make him feel welcome. They even put him on their phone plan, welcomed him into their family, had them over for holidays, and it seemed like everything was perfect. But after a while, things started to change. Hannah started leaving home for a couple days and would come back and think it was no big deal. She started being verbally aggressive and physically aggressive, things she was never like before. She would skip school. Oftentimes, her parents would hear her on the phone using terms like daddy or wifey or the life. They had no idea what any of this meant. They thought maybe this is just normal teenager behavior. They're just struggling. She's just struggling right now. Until her husband was at a training with the FBI and heard a presentation on human trafficking. After an investigation was done by the Las Vegas Police Department, they found out that their daughter, Hannah, was being advertised on a escort, a sex for sale website all over Las Vegas as a 16-year-old. And during this case went to court, and what is a common myth is that once somebody is rescued, that they are running into the loving, caring arms of their parents, ready and welcomed home. She was welcomed home. Unfortunately, she did not want to be there. In fact, during the trial, the parents sat on the side of the prosecution and Hannah sat on the side of the defense. She was so angry with her parents because they put her boyfriend in jail. And the reason why she was upset is because she truly thought that this was her boyfriend. She would go and visit him in jail. She would bring him money. He was there for 2 years. She was 18 by the time he got out and would still have a relationship with her mom. One time when he was getting ready to get out of jail, she said, "I've got an apartment ready for us. I'm so excited for us to start our lives together." And eventually she started noticing signs that he had other girlfriends. She confided in her mom and said, "You know what, Mom? I know that he has other girls, but I don't care just as long as he still loves me." And that's how traffickers convince most of their victims to participate in something that they think that they are willingly doing, but have no understanding that they've been brainwashed and systematically groomed into this. Because most of the time, trafficking does not happen through a kidnapping situation, unlike what a lot of people think. I have a lot of parents that approach me and say, "Oh, I don't let my children go out in the yard. They always have to be with me. I don't let them go places by themselves." That's up to you, but there's no way to prevent someone from approaching their children throughout their entire life. But they can teach their children important red flags to look for. They can teach their children that where their value comes from and that they are beautiful and wonderfully made by God, and they don't have to fall for someone's quick flattery like many girls do by pimps who try to recruit them. Oftentimes, when parents tell me this, I say, "Do you know, okay, those things are all good, but do you know what your child is doing on the internet? Does your child have a phone? Is your child online, in chat rooms, on social media, playing interactive games?" Those are all places where they can interact with the billions of strangers that live in this world. What are they thinking and feeling, and where are they expressing that? If they're expressing it online, it is bait for a predator who will smoothly, it's just like our greatest enemy, Satan. He is an angel of light, presenting as someone with a lot of money, glamorous lifestyle is what a pimp is going to present as. Oftentimes, traffickers will groom their victims similar to an abusive relationship. They're going to shower their potential victim with love and affection, maybe a nice car, getting their hair and their nails done all the time, offering them nice gifts to build a relationship. Traffickers will use several different tactics. The boyfriending tactic is the number one way of recruitment, like in Hannah's case. But other times they might offer access to a job, like in the acting industry or the modeling industry or the music industry. And maybe they'll provide for, maybe they will really do have connections. Unfortunately, that victim doesn't know it until later that they were actually accruing a debt to that trafficker. And eventually that debt is going to be owed and need to be paid. And they are going to be forced to work in prostitution in order to pay off or pay back all of those connections. If someone is a runaway or homeless, their vulnerabilities are extra evident. They need a place to stay. They don't have any belongings. If a teenager especially is a runaway, usually they're running away from something, and it's usually abuse at home. It's gotten to the point where they just got to get out. They just can't take it anymore, and usually they don't think about where they're going to go or what they're going to do. They just can't take it anymore. And that's when a trafficker will swoop in and offer the world. There was a pimp who wrote a book from jail, and he said, all you need to do is find out a person's greatest weakness and insert yourself as the solution to that problem or weakness. Are you targeting someone? Do they need a father figure? Pretend to be the father they never had. Do they want a job in the modeling industry? Pretend to have connections to that. Do they want a business opportunity? Do they want to get married? Present all of these things, their wildest dreams come true, and they'll always hold on to that. And they'll do anything to make that dream come true, all the while that his whole intention was never to make any of those dreams come true. It was to force this person to work for him. Pimp-controlled sex trafficking is become a huge problem in not only the world, but our country. And the reason being is because of profit. $263 billion annually are made around the world in the exploitation of others through sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And that's why pimps continue to do what they do. In Hannah's story, that might be a foreign concept to you. This is not always what's presented in TV or movies. You might have seen a movie, The Sound of Freedom, came out not too long ago. That's based off a true story of Tim Ballard. Our director at Damascus Road, our founder and CEO, Lisa, has actually worked with Tim Ballard. And that is an adequate presentation about human trafficking. Those are real stories. However, it still enhanced that myth that this is something that happens mostly to kids in other countries. But Hannah's story is something that happens every single day in our country. Human trafficking is the exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of commercial sex or forced labor. As we talked over some of the recruitment tactics like boyfriending, promise of a job, promise of a future, things that never materialize, when we understand those things, we can see how easy it is to manipulate someone. You just basically, like he said, figure out what their vulnerability is and exploit them, get them to trust you, create a trauma bond, create a love bond. And the reason why they do that is because if someone is kidnapped, they're always going to be trying to get away. But if they're groomed and a bond is built, it's so much more difficult to break that bond. As in Hannah's case, when her daughter, it was still difficult for her to leave him years later, even after he had already recruited others. That's very common for pimps to do, recruit one and then recruit others. That's known as a stable. And once he uses the same process with each victim, they form a household. They all call him daddy and they say, this is our family now. A sense of loyalty is actually a sign of love to the family. You're loyal to daddy by bringing home money. And of course, they will be rewarded for it. But once in this so-called family, every single aspect of a victim's life is controlled by their pimp. How much they have to make each night, who they're going to go out and see, what clients they're going to see, when they're working, when they can sleep, what they can eat, what they can wear. Even though it's their own money, every single thing is dictated to them. And if they try to leave, they're brainwashed into thinking there's nowhere else to go. Nobody loves you. Where else are you going to go? You're not going to be able to get a job. You have no history, no resume, no one there. I'm the only person, the pimp is the only person who will love and care in a false way, obviously. The love and affection is just to be able to recruit someone and to be able to make them stay. In fact, many victims will leave their pimp on average 6 times before they actually leave completely. And the reason why that is because if you think about a person in an abusive relationship, usually they're first showered with love and affection, and that same person turns out to be their abuser, and then bandages their wounds and said, I wouldn't have had to do this if you didn't break the rules of the house or you didn't try to keep some of the money. So making it their fault, like they broke loyalty to the family. And so once a person leaves, only the good times go back in their mind over and over and over. So they go back thinking, wanting, always holding on to that dream that they fell for in the first place. And it's very difficult for a victim to even understand that that is what happened to them, that they were a victim. In fact, most victims do not self-identify. So when we meet with victims, we have volunteers at Damascus Road that meet with victims in the Winnebago and Outagamie County jails. And we have a poster up there. It starts off by saying, people were meant to be loved and things were meant to be used. But the world is in chaos when people are being used and things are being loved. We have a series of questions that we go through that if someone identifies with those questions, they can meet with one of our volunteers. And in those questions, they start to realize, that's me, that's me, that's me. And not even ever realizing that what happened to them was actually called something, and that there were people that were ready and willing to help them through the process and to get away from their pimp. Our volunteers take resource guides into the jail along with survivor stories, Bibles, discipleship books, so that while they are there, they can read through these survivor stories and be encouraged. They can set up a plan of what they're going to do when they get out of jail. If they don't have a plan when they're going to get out of jail, most likely they will go back to their pimp. And if they're over the age of 18, that is their choice. They have to choose to leave. The average age into forced prostitution now, the target age of recruitment is 12 to 14 years old. But we work with, specifically in our aftercare, women who are 18 or older and are victims of human trafficking or commercial sexual exploitation. We also do prevention education targeting middle school and high school students so that we can help decrease the amount of recruitment that's happening by teaching students what to look for when pimps recruit. Hidden in plain sight. What is going on behind closed doors? Things aren't always as they seem, so look beneath the surface. So why is this happening in our country? In order for this to exist, there has to be a reason, and I'm going to share what that is in just a minute. But if I think about things not always looking as they seem, I'm reminded of today, which is Palm Sunday. In that situation in Scripture, things weren't always as they seemed either. Jesus is coming, riding in on the donkey. It's a triumphal entry. And all of the people that were there, all the Jews were cheering for him. Those were the same people just a few days later that were saying, we want Barabbas, crucify him. How does that change in just a short matter of days? I think it was probably because on the outside, what they appeared to be on the outside was not who they really were on the inside. They were going along with the crowd cheering Jesus in. But deep down inside, they were really looking for Jesus to come and be this triumphal warrior conqueror to save them from the Romans. That's who they thought Jesus was going to be. But when he came as a meek person, as a humbled servant, serving others, they realized that wasn't who they were looking for in their own hearts. And so at that point, they joined the crowd saying, crucify him. Jesus didn't look and act like they expected. On the outside, those same people were cheering, but they really only wanted what they wanted out of Jesus. I would like to think that I would be different. I would not be one of those people, but the truth is all of our sins put Jesus on the cross. It is very difficult to talk about human trafficking sometimes. It is a dark reality that I often want to pretend doesn't exist. But sometimes the most well-intentioned people that I've talked to have told me how awful human trafficking was and that they wanted to fight against it. But then the entire time in their secret life, they were contributing to the demand without even realizing it. So why does human trafficking exist in our own country? Human trafficking is the second largest criminal industry in the world. If you think about what an industry or a business needs, it needs supply and it needs demand. If there wasn't demand, there would not be pimps recruiting people because they can make a lot of money and exploiting people for money. So what contributes to the demand of human trafficking? Human trafficking basically is the buying and selling of people for forced prostitution. Many would say, I would never be involved in human trafficking, but many are probably contributing to the demand without even knowing it. The target age, as I mentioned, is 12 to 14 years old because the demand is younger and younger. And one of the things that is fueling the demand that has become very commonplace in our culture is the use of pornography. Pornography is being normalized along with pedophilia. They're changing the name to say, to call it something else, to be sexually attracted to minors, to soften it. It really is sexual sin, and that was the downfall of Rome. Porn has become so normalized that people are making it in their own homes. You can go on to a website, OnlyFans. People are making that in their home. Celebrities are making it in their home, normalizing it. I even saw a presentation by a professor saying, encouraging students that this would be something that would be healthy for them to engage in. And to many, it seems harmless, but it is actually contributing to human trafficking. And it is incredibly harmful to the person engaging in it and to others involved. But one of the things that I experienced when I was in Vegas, Las Vegas is a culture, obviously, their tagline is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And I think that's the absolute worst motto anyone could have for a city, because what it says is you can come here and do whatever you want and it's harmless. You can spend your money the way you want and it doesn't matter. Nobody gets hurt. When I lived in Vegas, I would have people say that to me. Oh, human trafficking is terrible. That's awful. Nobody should ever be involved in that. But what they didn't know, they admitted to me, was saying, well, I go online and I, meet up with an escort every now and then, but she's a professional and it's totally fine. She's got a nice house. She's got a nice car. And I said, how do you know that that house doesn't belong to her pimp? How do you know that that car she drives doesn't belong to her pimp? You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. She looks nice. She looks all put together because she is a product. When someone is forced into trafficking, many times their pimp will force them to get a branding, a tattoo, and that tattoo signifies that they belong to him. Human trafficking is taking a person and making them into a product for sexual gratification of others and for money and exploitation for a pimp. When I was ministering in the brothels outside of Las Vegas, there's brothels where prostitution is legal outside of Las Vegas. And many of the girls that are there, some of them had pimps, some of them didn't. Many of them, though, had previously been trafficked and had a pimp, but they had left. They got out, which seems like they should have a great life now. They were rescued, except they went back to work in the brothel, to work in the adult industry, because that was the only place that they felt normal. That was the only place that they felt like they fit in. Because their pimp had told them, while brainwashing them, this is the only thing that you're good for now. When a pimp recruits someone, they are forced to do everything that he expects them to do with his buyers, his clients. And after that happens, he'll say, you're a hoe now. What just happened? You're a hoe. Now this is your new name, and this is your identity, and this is what your life is going to be like now. In fact, that's why our director, our founder, chose the name Damascus Road. If you remember the story in the Bible, when Saul was on the Damascus Road, he was persecuting Christians. And when he had an encounter with Christ, his whole life changed, his identity changed, and his name changed to Paul. And for Damascus Road, for us, it's kind of the opposite in that when someone has an encounter with Christ, their life has changed, but we want them to know that their life has changed from what their pimp has said they are to what God created them to be. They are not the name, not the identity that their pimp has given them. They are God's child and who God has created them to be. And so in this process, that's just something that a pimp will often do, is to get them to believe that no one is ever going to help, no one is ever going to reach out or care for them. And of course, at Damascus Road, we are there to change that mindset, that there are people that want to help, that people are there who love them and want to get involved. When we were ministering in the brothels in Las Vegas, many of the girls that I met there, several of them said they grew up in church. And something happened along the way. Almost every single girl that we talked to, we had asked, what age were you sexually abused? And they were shocked that we even knew that about them. And the reason why we knew that is because 90% of victims of trafficking were sexually abused as a child. And the reason that is because when somebody is abused, first of all, their brain is still forming at a very young age. And it's being affected by the person who's doing the abusing is affecting the formation of their brain. Oftentimes, they're also saying things like, this is what people do when they love each other, to normalize this behavior. And so now as this child grows, they always are continuously equating love with sexual touch and physical touch. Well, we are all wanted, God created us to all desire love, to all desire relationships, but as that child grows, they're always seeking that love. They're always seeking relationship, but what they end up having is always a sexual relationship, and they always end up broken even more. Many of our girls have gotten recruited by pimps in this way. And pimps know that too, and so what they'll say is, hey, what your daddy's been doing this whole time, you could make $500 for that. So they know that. And they know how to exploit people who are already vulnerable and being abused. They know that they're easy targets to take advantage of. And so even in our aftercare, it can be a struggle because we are going and helping this person work through so many things. We call human trafficking like an onion. It has so many layers to it. On the inside is trauma, but on the outside there's so many other things: sexual abuse, physical abuse, drugs and alcohol addiction, because they're trying to cope through the trauma instead of getting true healing. So we have to try to work through those layers, and oftentimes one of the biggest struggles is just, what does a healthy relationship look like? What does a healthy man look like? At our office in Oshkosh, we have several things that we do to reach out to victims, and one of those is family dinner, where we all come together and we have a meal together, and we have a local church or community group provide that meal. And at first, we only allowed women to come and serve the meal. We only ever allow women at our center, at our program center. But what we were finding is that many of the girls in the aftercare were saying, you know, I don't know why it is. I mean, I left my daddy, my pimp, but I just always seem to end up with the same type of guy. And they didn't realize it, but their whole life, their abuser was grooming them for that, because they don't really know what a healthy relationship looks like. So we decided that we wanted to have them see healthy, strong Christian men. And so we opened that up to church groups, especially mixed groups could come. They could serve the meal. They didn't usually interact a lot with the victims, but what the girls had noticed was they're very observant. They have to be. Their whole life is running on adrenaline and just survival. And what they said was, they were so impressed with how the men treated the women in their group. They had never seen men treat women in that way. And that was a huge progress for us, for them to be able to see that. So we may think, now that we know a little bit more about what human trafficking really looks like, it's easy to see how that could happen in our area. In fact, when people say, I didn't know that happened here, I often ask them, anywhere there's internet, there can be human trafficking. Most of the time now, we have seen such a shift in recruitment. Especially since COVID. So previously to COVID, we had seen a lot of recruitment happening. Main areas were at schools, at the bus station, at the library, anywhere where they could find vulnerable teenagers, sometimes even at church. School, sometimes girls will try to recruit others. Their pimp might say, if you bring in someone else to the family, you can have a couple nights off. So they would be tempted to recruit others in the same way that they were recruited. We often would tell people, when kids are at the mall, that's a time the pimp who wrote a book about pimping would say he would go to the mall, and he would target 3 girls, and if one of them seemed to be left out, he would target her and just say, hey, you're beautiful. Has anyone ever told you that? And if she looked down, if she looked shy, if she looked insecure, he knew that he could eventually brainwash her to do anything he wanted her to do. But if she looked at him in the eye, confidently and said, oh, thank you, he would move on to the next. That doesn't just happen that happens in, I would say, it can have the potential to happen in a mall anywhere. There's still people that go to malls. But it can happen to anybody, anywhere. Years ago, I was at a mall in LA visiting a friend. We were doing some anti-trafficking work, and a guy came up to me and just basically fed me all those lines. Oh, you look beautiful, like one of those models. And at first I just thought, oh no, I didn't really click. And then I realized he was just going down a list of questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you visiting this area? I said, oh, I'm just waiting for my friend, and realized what was happening. And so then I started playing along. And I really should have said, yeah, I'm actually waiting for my friend. We're looking for pimps. Do you know any? But it's just an example of how there's no way to put your loved ones or your children, this could happen at any age, in a bubble. I mean, I was well into my adult years at that point. But it really is something that could affect anyone. In fact, when we would go to the brothels and meet with the women there, We went with 2 church ladies. They were in their 70s, and they would take care packages to the brothels, to the women in the brothels. And one of the brothel owners said, "Do you want a job?" to one of the church ladies, "because I have several clients who would just love to meet with you." So the motivation really is money. Of course, we know because of the demand, the target age is younger and younger. But other ages, college age is a really vulnerable time for many young people. And this isn't, I would say, women, but men too. Any way that a pimp can make money, so it really doesn't matter if they're male or female, although we still get more statistics of females because they are more willing to report than men. But we do know that both men and women are being trafficked. But it happens a lot anytime somebody is in a vulnerable situation. In college, there's lots of vulnerabilities. It's expensive, so pimps know that they need to have someone help them pay for college. Their students are experiencing new things. Maybe they're trying drugs and alcohol for the first time, wanting more independence. When I was working with some interns, they had told me that they were constantly being bombarded with invitations to be on a sugar daddy website. So basically, having older men pay them for whatever kind of fetish they wanted them to do. And that was tempting because they needed help paying for their school. I was shocked. I mean, I knew that was a thing, but to have them actually tell me this, it was eye-opening. And so I say that there's no really way to put a bubble around anyone, but if we know what this looks like, we can see how this is happening in our country and in our area, and how we can educate others to recognize the signs. In fact, one of the main vulnerabilities about human trafficking is that pimps look for is just people who don't know tactics that they use to recruit and manipulate. One of the things that I always tell parents or people who work with kids is just, how are you pouring into the lives of children in your life? Because if they have someone at home who's always telling them, or some youth pastor or youth worker, somebody, mentor or friend, telling them that they have worth, that they have value, that they're loved, that they're beautiful, when somebody like a pimp approaches them at some point in life, they're not going to fall for that. Right now, though, we are seeing trends change since COVID. More recruitment is happening online than ever before. Since 2020, internet recruitment is up 120% through social media and interactive gaming. I was in a training on sexting, and kids that are caught sexting because they're minors have to attend a class because that is technically they're engaging in pornography of minors if they're sending photos. And that's a big problem. When I would go into schools, that's one of the chief of police at a school not far from here said, "We know that this is a problem in this school, kids being pressured to send nude photos to each other or to their boyfriend, then they break up the next week, and the boyfriend now has these photos and can blackmail the ex-girlfriend into basically doing whatever he wants them to do." And she addressed and said there was such a problem in that school. This was a rural school about 20 miles from here. And she was emphasizing to the kids, if you send something that you wish you hadn't, please let us know, we can help you. You should never feel like you should have someone dictating the rest of your life because of a decision you wish you wouldn't have made. And so once that happens in that situation, they might feel like they have to do whatever this person is telling them to do. But now if we think about it, so many people are posting videos and their very innermost thoughts and feelings online that it's very easy bait for traffickers. In fact, in this training that I was in, as I was mentioning about sexting, they were training and they said, online, if somebody has conversations with a person 5 times, even if they've never met them, they would consider that person a friend. And so these bonds are being built, and it's very easy to see then, once the bond is built, how easy it would be to lure someone with just at first, hey, you can chat with me anytime, or if that young person had a fight with their parents, that the predator might say, hey, I'm a safe place. You can always talk to me, and build that wedge. Traffickers want to isolate their victims. And so eventually that person, it wouldn't seem so shocking that person might leave their home, the victim might leave their home and go with this trafficker because they built a relationship. They think it's their boyfriend or someone who's going to provide for them. When I was working in the brothels, one other thing that or doing ministry to the ladies in the brothels, one of the things that really struck me too, that one of the ladies said to me was, You know, one of the most exploitive form of human trafficking is the pornography industry, which we knew was very prevalent in Las Vegas, but everywhere. And that was something I had never considered before. And she said that not only is it human trafficking because a person, you never know if that person is willingly doing what they're doing, but it's taking a situation that in real life is illegal, rape is illegal, but it's putting it in the form of a video, and now it's considered adult entertainment. Not only that, but it's very habit-forming and addictive. And once a person is addicted, they need more and more to have that same release of dopamine in their brain. Because that's what it does. It releases the chemical dopamine in their brain, the feel-good chemical. It's designed that way because in the confines of a marriage, it's made for each person to want to be attracted to the other. But when it's taken out of that context, it can be very, very addictive and habit-forming. And not only that, but it's exploitive to the people involved. She said it's so exploitive that even if a person were able to get away from their pimp, it would always be there. There would always be that video or that picture they could never escape. They could never escape that from other people seeing it. So trafficking, what does it look like in our area? Now that we know that it is something that can happen online, most recruitment is happening online. Also, more exploitation of people is happening online. People are being recruited online and bought and sold online. Now I'm going to take us back to the crowds on Palm Sunday. So the crowds gathered, and it looked like a fun time. They were going to do, they're welcoming Jesus into the city. And we, in our area, are going to be welcoming lots of people into our area in just a few short weeks with the draft. And that's one of the ways that trafficking often happens in areas where there is large amounts of tourism. When there's large amounts of tourism, we know that crime increase and the potential for human trafficking increase because people are coming and they have money to spend. Same is the Vegas mentality that they want to have a good time. They're away from home. They have money to spend, and they're not always wise about how they're going to spend that money. Especially young players, maybe they just got drafted. They feel like they got a $5 million contract and they're on top of the world, and they just want to have a beautiful young lady join them, and they're willing to pay for that, and not even knowing that they could actually be involved in trafficking and exploitation at the time. Or anyone else that's coming for the events that are happening during the day, but late at night they could think, well, I just want the party to continue. I'll just go online and find a date or an escort on one of these websites, because she wants to be doing what she's doing. I mean, I'm helping her, she's working, but really not knowing what's going on behind the scenes. Because it's hidden in plain sight, and it never looks like what it truly is. So if any of these things that I described today that are contributing to the demand of trafficking, like pornography, one of the partnerships that I'm really thankful for now is with Ephesians 5 Ministries. It's a great ministry that helps people with pornography addiction. So today, though, I never want to share about human trafficking and just tell you this is an awful thing that's happening in our country, which it is. But I also want to share with you that there is hope. And through Damascus Road, we are striving to provide hope and healing for victims of human trafficking. We have 3 main pillars: educate, locate, and advocate, and many different ways that we do this. There's a couple of different things that I have set up on the table in the back for you, ways that you can get involved to help fight human trafficking. One of those is our donation card. We are all financially supported ministry, so if you feel God prompting you to give, there's a giving card back there along with a QR code. We also have a 101 class, and I would say that this is the way that today, since we have a more limited amount of time, this is the way, if you're wanting more education, to attend one of our 101 classes. And we have those once a month at our office in Oshkosh. And I lead those, so it's usually on a Tuesday or Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. If you'd like to find out more about the work of Damascus Road, we have a brochure for that. Also, we have lots of different areas that you can volunteer if you're interested in volunteering. We have some ongoing opportunities on our website. We also have one-time opportunities. One of those we did yesterday. We did a draft outreach. So knowing that trafficking increases during a tourism event like the draft, we went out and canvassed the city. We had all kinds of volunteers go out and hand out missing children posters to hotels and gas stations to help make the connection between missing kids and human trafficking. Sometimes the kids go missing. If they've been trafficked, they might be in the area of the draft or the Super Bowl because their pimp will bring them to that location because there is money to be made. Other things that we have on the table are our donation card. We currently, in our aftercare, work with women who are 18 or older who are victims of human trafficking or commercial sexual exploitation. And in doing that, we do a couple of different things. We offer an Exodus bag filled with toiletries and personal care items. We offer a fleece blanket and just other ways that ladies can feel welcome. Most of the time, they have a lot of trust and trauma issues, and so we want to start by creating a warm and welcoming environment for them. We also can come to your location if you're at a business or another community group, you would like a speaker to come to your location. We have the ability to come to you. Also, we have red flag cards. This is one that I would highly encourage you to take. It shows you what are the signs to look out for. Some of these we got from Andrea, who was sharing about what happened with her daughter, Hannah. These were some of the signs that were happening. She just didn't know the signs because she didn't know what to look for. We also have a one-time event happening every January 11th, and that's our National Human Trafficking Awareness Day rally. We all get to stand in front of the sundial in Oshkosh, downtown. The Oshkosh Police Department come with us, and they bring their big community vehicle. But we always need, if you're saying, well, I can't get involved on an ongoing basis, we do have opportunities like this to get involved as a one-time event. It's on a Sunday this year. It's just always whatever day that it is. And you can just come and hold a sign, so you don't need any kind of experience. Everyone's welcome. That's going to be on a Sunday this year, so we are going to do it. Normally we do 11 to 1, but I think this year we're going to do it a little bit later so that people can come after church. And lastly, this is one of the easiest ways that you can make a difference, and that's through prayer. In the back table, we have a ministry called Scarlet Cord, and this is where, if you're interested in doing it, you get connected. You don't chat back and forth with a person, but we assign you to a person to pray for. And we just ask that you pray for this person as long as God leads you. This is someone that we're currently working with in our aftercare program. There's a little description on the card of what their needs are, and we just give you their initials to protect their identity. But this prayer is the foundation of everything that we do, and this is a really easy way to make a big difference. So all you would need to do is put your name and email, and then I keep the bottom part, and you keep the top as a reminder to pray. So today, you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know. That is one of my favorite quotes that I use, because as I went through training at the Salvation Army, it was a very overwhelming time. There was so much information, and it was eye-opening. And I wanted to pretend like this wasn't happening, like this didn't exist. And today, you might be feeling that same way. But I want to encourage you, Jesus, he went to the vulnerable. He went to the marginalized. He jumped into other people's lives, other people's stories. Even though it was messy, it was complicated, he hung around with prostitutes and sinners because we all are sinners in need of a Savior. And Jesus might be calling you to do the same thing. He calls us to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our community. And there are several ways that you can do that with Damascus Road. It might require you to step out and get involved in something that's outside of your comfort zone, or something you might feel that you don't fully understand. But if you lead with the compassion of Christ, he will work through you. I like the phrase, this is used a lot. He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so I'm just asking you, how is he calling you to get involved today? Thank you so much for sharing this, allowing me to share with you today. I really appreciate just the time that you've taken to listen, to hear the stories, and to allow your eyes to be open to something that is dark, but that God is using just individuals to reach out to people who are in need of help. And most importantly, we just want to show the love of Christ to people who have been trapped in human trafficking. We want them to know that even though their pimp has said nobody loves or cares for you, that there are people who do, and that Jesus loves and cares for them. So in the end, I'm going to show just a short video. This is a survivor story. And I really like her story because she talks a lot about the myths and facts of trafficking and how important it is for others to get involved in the fight against human trafficking.
When I'm in a place of vulnerability, that was the easiest way for my, recruiter to get me in the position he wanted me to. He had a position of power over me. I was vulnerable. And after that, it turned into an addiction. I became addicted to drugs. Before that, that wasn't my situation. And I became dependent on him then for a living space to supply my addiction, for food. Literally, it came down at the end of the day, I needed him for everything and anything. So for tactics used by him, he pretended, he wanted a romantic relationship with me, that I was the only one. He wanted a romantic relationship with me. He would do nice, thoughtful things to get me to think, oh, he loves me. When really at the end of the day, I was not the only person that he was doing that with and doing that to. And that became very prevalent later in my story. So for me, things I, early in recovery and today I still deal with, I have a lot of anxiety, a lot of social anxiety. I isolate a lot. I don't openly trust people or situations as much as I used to. Nowadays, I try to be extremely independent because I can't trust or rely on another person for fear of their intentions. I choose to stuff my feelings, things I feel, shut it out completely. That's a huge defense mechanism for me, because for me, getting vulnerable is where people see that I'm weak. And that's how I feel, where people can use me and abuse me for the worst. I avoid social situations, certain people, because it brings up triggers for me that I'm not willing to deal with. In early recovery with it, there was night terrors, and really at the end of the day, it can come down to depression and disassociation for me as well. I think for me, the most important thing is to be understanding and be willing to assist that person at their own pace. For me, at the end of the day, it's not anything, it's not just a phase, it's not something I'm gonna get over, it's part of my life, it's part of my story, and to have someone that can understand that and meet me where I'm at is super important for me, so that's the best way anyone can help. Something I wish I would have known in the beginning is that it can seriously happen to anybody. I was so oblivious to the fact that it was in my area. I did not recognize early warning signs of it because I wasn't properly educated. Early warning signs that I should have noticed before is, offering to buy me stuff, free drugs I didn't even do before in the past, wanting to know personal information about me, my family, where I live, stuff like that. Those are all early warning signs that I kind of just thought someone cares for me and enjoys my company and wants me around, when in reality, somebody you just meet, that kind of raises a red flag. The most dangerous myth about human trafficking, in my opinion, is that it, again, doesn't exist in my area. I never saw it before in my area, and I always thought it was something like abduction and whatnot, when in reality it comes in so many shapes and forms. Actually, I had to ask for help. I didn't really know or understand exactly what I was asking for help with, but I knew I was in the right place with the right people. So Damascus Road met me where I was at, and I told them my story. And from there, they kind of just scooped me up, and they supported me. They gave me resources, helped me with the next step of my life, where I can go next. And, continue to stay by my side through every step of my journey, and I'm forever grateful for that. Despite all I've went through, if someone were to ask me a question like, who is your hero, I would say myself in 5 years. So what inspires me and motivates me to keep moving is where I could potentially be in 5 years, because 5 years from now, I'm going to be in a way different place than I'm at now. So that's always my motivation to keep going forward despite all of my past.
I didn't think it was going to be hard to stand up here and talk to you afterwards. I hope your heart breaks for what's happening in our world today. And to be grateful to know that in our area, there are people with a passion who want to help. I know it's not your typical Palm Sunday service that we had this morning, but it was necessary. Like in a couple of weeks, tons of people are going to be coming to our area, and it's going to be happening on a big level. Can you at least commit to pray? I think as we think about moving into this next week, as we think about Palm Sunday and what it represents, right? Jesus coming in, and like Terra pointed out, on a dime, they changed so quickly. They got swept up so quickly and changed their point of view. Those of you who are listening online and those of you who are here this morning, like we can't not know anymore. We can't not know. We're responsible. How will we walk in that responsibility this week as we prepare our hearts and our minds, as we think about who it is we serve? There is hope. There are people on the front lines, and we can be on the front lines just through praying. We may not have all the money in the world to help, but we can pray. So let me just end this morning with a word of prayer as we leave, thinking about all that Jesus has done. And Father, I know your heart is breaking for the lives, the women, the men who get sucked into trafficking. I know you are close to them, even in the midst when they're being so sucked in. And just pray, Father, for our congregation to have soft hearts, to love well. I pray for my heart, Lord, that my heart would love well, that I wouldn't turn my head the other way, that I would continue to pray, and lay before you those lives who are sucked in and lost to a dark world. Heavenly Father, I pray for Damascus Road. I pray, Father, that as they prepare for this coming couple of weeks where they will probably see many more and have the opportunity to help many more get out of the industry, I pray, Father, that you would give them success upon success and that you would go before them, paving the way as you have in so many ways already, directing their steps. We thank you, Lord, that we get to serve you and that it's not the end of the story, but that you do give hope, that there is a way out. I pray, Father, that you would just go as we go to our other 6 days. May we be conscious. May we not forget. May we be responsible with the information we've been given this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all for being here, and check out the table as you leave.